Hello and welcome to the Celina Joan podcast. I am your host, Celina Joan, and today I want to talk about what is healing. What is healing? I just got back from a retreat on the west side of Madison. It was a heart-opening retreat, and I really had a profound experience during the hypnosis, and it made me break through that last glass ceiling, if you will. And it had a lot to do with shame. And I realized that my shame came from my parents. And the experience that I had made me realize that I had shame because my father hated women. And so he hated women because of my mother. Because my mother caused him so much pain. He used to be a very loving man, a very fun man who just loved life. And I started to receive very poor treatment from him once I started to develop into a young lady. And, I wanted to be a ballerina. And instead, I was forced to take Taekwondo classes. And I was threatened that he would beat my ass if he caught me using a tampon. So it discouraged me from my womanhood, and it didn't help that my mother wasn't there to teach me how to be a woman because she was so consumed by her own insecurities as a woman, right? So she wasn't a very good example of what I should be doing and who I should be as a woman. And so this retreat really showed me that, and we kind of ripped the cords away from ourselves, and it was so powerful, and I wanted to yell, "Let's go!" But everybody was kind of in their own zone, and so I didn't want to do that. But I got to yell it at the end, and everybody laughed. So it was quite beautiful. And, there were some people there who were just beginning or like going through a very dark place in their healing journey. Maybe it was the beginning. And there were some people who were young. There were some people who were much older. They had been doing it for a long time. It got me questioning, what is healing? Is it ever done? And I don't think it is. I don't think it's ever done. I think that this life is, at least where we're at now, with the way that our society is built and the way that people live, I think it's going to take a couple generations for us to heal. And then even then, we are human and we have desires, and sometimes we hurt people when we chase those desires. And so I think life is just a healing process. And I don't think that at any age you're supposed to have it figured out, And even when we break glass ceilings, it still doesn't mean that we have everything figured out, right? It's now I know that there's no reason to have shame for simply being a woman. There's no reason to have shame for embracing the femininity that I embody. I understand now that most of the time, if not all of the time, right? Because now that I'm on this side of it, I see it. Most, if not all of the time, when somebody is unkind to you, they are simply projecting something that they maybe don't even recognize that they need to work on. Or they're projecting something that they are conscious of, that you kind of become a mirror for them, and they see that, and they don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to deal with it. And so they get angry at you, and they try to make you feel small. I heard this study called like the crab theory, where scientists observed that when one crab figured out how to get out of the box or out of the cage, the rest of the crabs would grab its legs and rip its legs off so that it couldn't get out. And we can kind of relate that to humanity because, you know, especially when you have a spiritual awakening and you start to become conscious of like who am I and what am I doing and who are these people that are around me and why do I feel these things? Why do I feel this way? And so we start to question the people around us, and then eventually we realize that we need to purge the people around us, the people that are not serving us. So if you're experiencing that in your life, you're experiencing people who just want to like bring you down, that's a sure sign that you need to skip town. Get out of there. They're not serving you. And the word serve at first really confused me personally because I was a people pleaser. I was anxiously attached to people. And so when I heard the word serve, I was like, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be healing. Why? I have to serve people? I'm so confused, you know? But the ability to serve other people does not become authentic or useful until you have served yourself. And this is the way that I look at it. If I'm going to provide a service for somebody, I want to provide the highest quality service that I possibly can. I cannot do that if my cup is empty. If my cup is empty and I'm trying to pour into somebody else's cup, I am literally doing nothing. If you are new to the spiritual journey, you know, if you got them Bambi legs and you're walking through the spiritual path and you're hearing all this terminology and service comes up, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it until you have really stepped into who you are. And in the beginning, it's very dark. It's very dark. It's a scary place. Being reborn is a scary, scary, scary place. And I want to get more into that with my good friend and soul sister, Vortasia. So I'm not going to get into that too much on this podcast. But as far as healing, oh man, healing is a beast. And I kind of want to give this analogy to help people understand who haven't quite stepped into this lane, if you will. So my relationship with my father obviously was not a healthy one. It wasn't a good one. It started out okay because I was a daddy's girl and I just kind of did whatever he said because I was like, I just want to make my dad happy, you know? And then I stepped into womanhood and everything became a problem. And I ended up running away from home at 14. And I thought that my mother was going to be my saving grace. And she wasn't. If anything, there was more pain there. And so the spiritual awakening, when we're on the outside and we witness on social media people who are having spiritual awakenings, it can seem like this beautiful thing, and it is a beautiful thing, but it's hard. It's hard. I kind of think of it as like my mother, right? I thought that this spiritual journey was going to be my saving grace, and she was going to be the complete opposite of what I was already experiencing. But the reality was that there was still pain there, and in fact there was more pain because I wasn't numbing myself anymore. I wasn't drinking anymore. I wasn't hanging out with people who were boosting my ego. I wasn't wearing these fancy clothes. I was wearing the new clothes all the time. I was spending like $500 a week on clothes. I stopped wearing makeup. I had really bad cystic acne and decided, you know, I'm going to stop covering this up. Like I'm going to let it all show. And I did. And it was so painful at first. Think of it like, and this might be an overused analogy, but think of it like diamonds. They are created under pressure. And I have a diamond ring, my first diamond ring that I've ever had in my life, which was gifted to me from the company Pandora for being sober. And I look at this diamond ring every day, and it's when it hits the light, it sparkles all these different colors, and it's so beautiful. And I get to appreciate it. Ooh, it just sparkled right in my eye just then. But this diamond went through a lot to become so beautiful, to be something that I get to wear on my finger every single day and enjoy it. It went through a lot to get there. And that is what healing is. Healing is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing, right? Like, inevitably, it's a beautiful thing. It's not easy. But here's the catch, right? Because not healing is worse. Continuing down this path of numbing ourselves and denying ourselves what it is that we actually want, because we all want to heal. We all want to be loved. Some of us are so deeply consumed by the pain. We're so deeply consumed by the suffering that we have convinced ourselves that there's no way out. And it's such a lie. It's such a lie. And I think a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are afraid. And there was a moment when I broke down and I was like, who am I going to be when I heal? I'm afraid of her. Who is she? It really made me realize this journey it requires everything. It requires all of your attention. It requires your dedication. It requires your tears. It requires you to face your fears. It requires you to work with your triggers, being able to understand when I'm having a trigger, and practicing these skills of not responding. It is the biggest accomplishment, and I feel like to me, that is the definition of taking my power back, is not allowing my triggers to make decisions for me. Healing also very, 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 very much requires vulnerability. And it's so amazing to me how healing requires the very things that you are terrified of. You can't escape it. There's no way around it. There's no way around your pain. There's no way around the experiences that you had that don't exist anymore. You have to go through them. And a practice that I learned that I would love to share with you is facing and sitting with the emotion. For example, I not recently, but a couple months ago, broke up with somebody that I was dating. I had major surgery, and he was not there for me after my surgery. And so I decided to break up with him. And, physically I had left him, but emotionally and mentally, I still wanted to be with him. I still wanted it to work. And so we hung out a couple of times afterwards, and there was an incident where I realized it's done. It's done, and I need to accept that. And as I'm pulling into the garage, I can feel this complete sadness rising up, just starting in the pit of my stomach and making its way down my thighs, making its way up to my esophagus. And my brain My beautiful brain, the beautiful ego that just wants to protect me and make sure that I'm safe, was like, let's go play your guitar. Let's go sing. Let's just do very soothing things right now. And I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to park this car, and I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to feel it. So I parked my car, and I shut it off, and I leaned back into my seat, and I'm just washed with this immense sadness that this relationship is over. And I allowed myself to really, really feel it. I mean, everything. I allowed myself to have all of the thoughts, have all of the feelings. I allowed myself to just like move my body in the way that it needed to be moved. And so I hunched over and I kind of held my stomach and I just gut cried. And after crying for a few minutes, I leaned back and I put my head back and I just got snot, tears, and everything coming down. And I just wait there and I take a deep breath. In that moment, I accepted that it was over. And I felt so much better. I instantly felt so much better. It was so clear. And I had no more emotional attachment to the words, it's over. They were gone. I got out of my car feeling so light. Like empty, but not empty as in like a dark void empty. Like I was empty to the point where I could just like float. And I knew that everything was going to be okay. I was like, I have just in this very moment created the space for the right man to step into my life when the time is right. Because that's truly what I've done. And I think what happens a lot of the time is that we get so caught up in the pain of the past, the story of the past, that we lack the perspective of potential in what we're actually going through, right? I think sometimes we don't take the thought further than the current situation. And I think it's very beneficial to ask ourselves when we're experiencing pain or experiencing a less favorable situation, ask ourselves, what is this situation actually doing? What is actually happening here right now? If you're in a relationship with somebody and they cheat on you, yeah, it sucks, especially when you really like them, right? But what has that person actually done? They've shown you that they don't value you. They've shown you that they don't care about your boundaries. They've shown you that they don't respect you. Good. Leave. And I know that can seem more difficult than it sounds, but if we think about it this way, if we step away from the emotional attachment to the relationship, and this might be like a difficult concept for some people to grab, and I accept that. This is something that has truly helped me on my path of not allowing people outside of me to take away my power. If somebody cheats on me, what do I value more? That person or my standards? Right? Do I value being respected? Or do I value having a man in my life who doesn't respect me? And it can seem like an overly simple concept, but it is the truth. And I do think that a lot more people are stepping into that. And perhaps this podcast is going to reach people who haven't heard this concept yet. And I hope that it does. And I hope that practice really helps you step back into your power, really helps you perceive life from a position of power and not a position of victimhood. Because continuing to be the victim of your story is not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. It's definitely nice to have things given to you. It's definitely nice to receive sympathy. But when we can provide for ourselves, it is so much better. And I hope that everybody listening to this podcast really steps into that power and learns to perceive life in a more simplistic way. Because you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to live the life of your dreams. You do. You do. Regardless of the plight, regardless of the people who didn't see you, regardless of the caretakers who did not nurture you. I want to say, like, none of it matters. And I know that might seem insensitive, because it does matter. Because there are things that you need to learn within that scope. And that always results, when you learn that, it results in you understanding your value. When you can hone in on that situation and you can make that discovery, you can, turn that page. You can say, whoa, wait a minute. There's never really been anything wrong with me. It's always been you. You're the one who hasn't figured it out yet. And so I hope that everybody listening to this podcast is able to do that and reclaim your power and step into the person that you've always been beneath the blindfold of trauma. That's going to be it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and remember to be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and be patient with others. None of us is perfect, and that's okay.